Uh-oh.
Check.
Good morning.
Testing.
We'll get you in frame.
Morning.
How are we?
Oh, I look very 90s today, don't I?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Not an
You got the
accident,
90s
but
aura.
I'll take it. 90s were good. 90s were a good time.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. This is Youngstown's Talk Channel. Joe and Kelin. We're going to go heavy. We're going to go light today. What's on the agenda?
Well, I was going to touch on a topic.
What did you say?
There's not much to say, and it is kind of a downer. So I was just going to touch on it and then make light of it, if I may.
You have the floor.
Have you been following the Savannah Guthrie mom?
Don't even know who
story.
That is. No.
Okay, so Savannah Guthrie is the morning show, one of the morning show anchor people on the Today Show.
Mm-hmm.
You know who Savannah Guthrie is.
I don't.
Yes, you do.
I do not.
She's on NBC. She's always like network. With Hoda doing the Macy's Day Parade.
I don't even know who Hoda is.
She covers the Olympics.
Irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Go ahead. What's up with her?
Savannah Guthrie's mother has been missing for several days. They noticed it January 31st when she didn't show up to church.
Right.
That was a big red flag for the family. They went to her house. She's not there. Her car is there. Her cell phone is there. She's gone. Mm-hmm. She is not senile. She does not have Alzheimer's or dementia. She is sharp. So it's not a case that she would have wandered off. So police then obviously were called, and they have been now searching for Savannah Guthrie's mom. They have now declared it a crime scene. I've been getting bits and pieces of information that there may be a little blood in her house. They believe at this point she was taken against her will. And we don't know why, and we don't know by who, and we don't know. She was living in Arizona, and the neighbors on the property were not very close. It was sort of that Arizona desert-like terrain. So there's just not a whole lot of information at this point. So obviously Savannah Guthrie has taken some time away from the Today Show. She's with her family. All of this is still unfolding. And I'm like, oh my God, how terrifying, how sad, how awful. And if I may just for a moment be a disgusting optimist.
Okay. Just
a sickening optimist. I always try to, in every terrible situation, find some silver lining, however small it is. And I think I found that the other day because my YouTube algorithm now can be a lot of like news stories, and probably because I look up stuff and watch stuff so we can discuss it. And Fox News was covering this. And obviously anybody who's been around the last couple of years knows Fox News and NBC are probably mortal enemies, two opposite sides of the political spectrum. So I was like, oh, please don't be ugly about this story because you don't like NBC. And this woman on Fox News, who's always on there, who's also well-known, was very kind. They were talking about it. They were like, our hearts go out to Savannah. Our prayers are with her and her family. We'll be covering this. We're wishing her the best. And I was like, I tell you, if anything is going to unite people, it's a tragedy. And it's sad that that's the case, but you got to admit that there's like a glimmer of hope for humanity in that, I think. I'm like waiting for you to be like, no, there's not. Everything sucks.
Well, opposite of you, I am the eternal pessimist, and I have glimmers of hopelessness wrapped in everything that we talk about. Yeah. And now I'm annoyed for a couple different reasons.
Okay.
All right. So number one, when people get taken and murdered and bad things happen to people every day, and the only ones we pay attention to are fucking famous people. How about the lady who we don't even know her name, that their kids got taken and murdered and raped, right?
Yeah.
And we never hear about them. So yes, we live in a terrible society and bad things happen to people. And the principle is let's, move away from the secular terribleness that is our culture so that we can maybe have less people being taken.
Yeah. And I mean, I would be lying if I said that wasn't a thought of my mind at one point too, that, oh, we're all supposed to care because she's well known.
Exactly.
But I mean, to an extent, she is well known. That's what makes it headline worthy. Every single murder can't be covered this way. We would be endlessly talking about murders.
But who do we choose to cover?
Also,
the famous
Savannah herself would be very much in the spotlight because of the Olympics and everything going on now. So to not address what's happening, I think would be a big like, hey, where's Savannah Guthrie? Like the Olympics and all these other things, like this is what she does. And to just be like, oh, there's no Savannah Guthrie would probably be pretty noticeable and weird. So there's another thing is obviously they're going to cover this because there's another tie-in that they have to explain why she's not around, I'm guessing.
Yeah. To what end, though? Like, okay, we have an example. We have an actual human demonstration that things are terrible. Great. Logos guy over here is waiting. Let's just keep it going. Keep the logic going, right? Where do we end up in the logic? A famous person is not going to be able to cover the Olympics. Okay, wrong path, right? The real important engineering feat here is to someone gets taken. And what have we done to create the scenario where somebody gets taken? A huge profile person gets taken. Nobody is excluded from the terribleness of the society. So the Logos guy's saying, okay, well, what do you do? Let's make a better society. Let's not invite criminals in, and let's not justify their behaviors, and let's not spread drugs and gangs and tolerate misbehavior. Like, let's do that. And then everybody's like, well, no, what if she can't cover the Olympics? I'm like, all right, I'm gone. I'm out. Like, we're not really.
I mean, I don't think people are upset because she can't cover the Olympics.
But if that's going to be the end, is that our concern is that someone famous is no longer going to be able to cover the Olympics. But Bob Smith down the road, he got taken and they're looking for him. And it's not even a blurb anywhere. Both are people. Both have, influences in their own sphere. And one, we're gonna vocalize concern, and the other one, we're not even gonna notice.
Who's a celebrity or somebody you're interested in the media? Who do you watch a lot? Who do you think is interesting?
Interesting, like
just somebody that you are like, oh, I listen to this person.
I look at news for the most believable, right? I know that everybody that's telling me things is captured, and I use the Socratic method in order to, distill things down to see what's believable and what's not. So I don't have anybody in particular that stays there forever.
BJ says Rogan. You like Joe Rogan?
I listen to Joe Rogan.
If Joe Rogan turned up missing and his home was a crime scene, would you be more interested in that than if somebody in the middle of
I would still be disappointed. It's
of.
Not a conflict that I would still be interested in something that is known to me something happened.
And that's what's going on here.
Taking it through the logical progression, right? I would be annoyed with myself that somebody else had happened to that exact same day that I don't even know about.
Oh, Sherry says Brandon Lake. Sherry, I would be devastated if anything happened to Brandon Lake. I love him.
Yeah.
She also says, not sure if it's true, but I just read that they are looking at the son-in-law.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. That makes more sense to me than just a total rando coming into her house. But yeah.
Yeah. I don't get fascinated with that stuff at all. My wife, you're big into that. Great. I'm just not.
I wouldn't say I'm fascinated. I'm like, oh, somebody in the public eye. So I heard about it on every major news network. So it was hard to miss. And what are we going to do with this?
Nothing.
Let's look at the positive here. In an era, in a climate that the entire freaking nation is divided and fighting, I saw a little bit of hope of two polar opposite sides supporting each other. And I thought that was nice.
Oh, sweet. So sweet. So happy for
Ebenezer.
them. So happy for them. What's next?
That's all I got.
What?
That's all I got. I tried to bring world peace and hope and joy, and you crush it down.
I did crush it. It's just my opinion. And we know.
Let's talk about doom and gloom now, and let's all fight. Oh,
yeah.
I saw your little spaceship mission got rescheduled.
Yeah.
Are you bummed out about that?
No, I mean, my big fear with the Artemis mission is they're years in design and development, and they have not launched this spacecraft as a proven, proven anything at this point. Like when SpaceX was doing their stuff, they launched a whole lot that did not go right. And when Boeing, when they launched the space capsule that had a bunch of leaky things and decided to launch it anyway, big problems. So when they did the wet dress rehearsal, they found a bunch of hydrogen leaks, the cold weather, the equipment, whatever, could have been whatever. and it's good that they're going to delay it, but I still don't think there's going to be an adequate test after the next wet dress rehearsal. So I'm a little concerned for we're putting people in that thing, and it's a vehicle that is not time tested.
It's a death trap. My husband said last night, he was watching it. He's the one who told me. I didn't even know, but he said something like one of the issues they were having is a similar issue they had when the Challenger exploded. So you definitely don't want to be on that.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, I got some concerns, but it'll probably be all right. Look, shimmer of hope and optimism.
It's going to come in the spring when everything is thawed and everything's been tested and everyone can come out and support it. And they'll say, yay, we're glad we didn't do it in February.
Why isn't the general public excited about that mission? Like most people get less two shits, right? And in schools,
I just haven't heard much about it. Between you and my husband, if neither of you had said anything to me about it, I wouldn't even know it was happening.
Okay.
Probably because I don't watch a lot of the news lately. Yeah, I just didn't know.
Probably because we're paying attention to taken items or taken people that are celebrities.
I know who Savannah Guthrie is.
Sophisticated innovations that propel humanity, you know. That's probably the distraction that gets in the way. Maybe that's why I'm annoyed by it too.
That worrying about our fellow man has been really a distraction. And
hey, listen, I tried to convince everybody to create a world that was good, and let's not, bow to the vices of human nature, and nobody listened to me. So when bad things happen, it's like, hey, for Thanksgiving, I invited 100 homeless people to have Thanksgiving dinner. I'm like, you're probably not going to get the best behaviors from people who are used to living on the street. That's probably a bad idea. No, it'd be fine. Okay. I'm like, okay, fine. And then later on, we're like, somebody stole my TV. I'm like, I fucking told you that would happen.
This is funny because I mentioned one day here, I started to talk about it and then we got on something else and I don't think I ever finished it. But it's so interesting. This weird feeling that I've been having and experiencing lately, probably because the weather's been cold and crappy. And I don't know where this even came from. But lately, I have a strong urge when I'm driving, like if I'm driving here or driving to work or just anywhere I'm going on my daily route, and I see people outside, I have an urge to pick them up. Like if they're walking somewhere, if they're waiting for the bus, sometimes they just got off the bus, like a public transit bus, and I see them walking to wherever they're going. I have the strongest urge to be like, can I give you a ride? Like, I have heated seats. It is warm in here. You're clearly walking in the snow. Let me take you wherever you're going. And then my brain says, that's a good way to get murdered. Number one, you've been taught your whole life you don't pick up strangers. And number two, they're probably going a ways out of your way and you're going to be late and you can't be late to where you're going. Just let them be. But that like little voice in my head, I have to be like, shh, you're going to get me killed. Stop.
Yeah. So we all have a desire to have a neighborhood that you can leave your doors unlocked and a stranger you can pick up and give them a ride without being axe murdered and whatever. But that is not a reality. So if you're consulting with me right now and you're asking, hey, Joe, should I take the risk of picking somebody up? I'm going to say, stranger. We do not live in a world where that is an option for anybody, not just, beautiful blonde girls, but also, did I just call you beautiful? Like that.
Even if it was an accident,
but anybody, right? And and so I'm all for a world that is trustworthy enough, but it's so long that political sphere is that we really like criminals and we invite them to do whatever it is that they do, and we tolerate it and make excuses for them and make them out to be great human beings when all they are is turds of the world. Then so be it. Don't pick people up.
Well, some of them I don't think I like. There's a couple that I just see every day. Like I'm like, clearly not an axe murderer. Clearly they're going to work or wherever they go every day. I don't know. Maybe they're going to a crack house, I guess. I don't really know. Mm-hmm. They look like somebody going to work. And I see them just like walking over the snow mounds and stuff. And I want to be like,
bad for them.
You're clearly going somewhere so close you're walking there. Can I just give you a ride? And then, ultimately I'm like, that's probably not a safe thing to do. And by the way, they are dressed warm. They're fine. And I go about my day because I don't want to be murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real. I also can't be inconvenienced, which makes me feel bad. Because I think,
don't feel bad.
What if they're like, yeah, I'd love a ride, but I got to go all the way on the other side of town. I'm like, oh, come on. I can't go that far. I got to be somewhere. And so that's another reason I don't do it.
Okay, so can we talk about Brandon Lake? So,
did something happen with Brandon Lake, Sherry? Or you just like Brandon Lake? I mean, I like Brandon Lake, but is there something that happened with Brandon Lake?
Let's
bring it up.
Ask the Grockmeister. Am I going to be disappointed in this search when we get to Brandon Lake? Is it going to be something like I was talking about rocket engines and physics?
Do you know who Brandon Lake is?
I don't even know who Brandon Lake is.
No, he's a Christian artist. He's just a really well-known. Jelly Roll just redid a song "Gratitude" with him, or not "Gratitude." I'm sorry, "Hard Fought Hallelujah." He did with Jelly Roll, so he's been, he's won some Grammys as a Christian artist. He's awesome. I love him, but I just didn't know if Sherry just wants to talk about him because she loves him too, or if something happened recently. Yeah, I mean, Jelly Roll just won a Grammy, and they've been working together, so he's sort of been in the headlines for that.
Well, that wasn't exciting. Thanks, Sherry, for that.
I thought maybe something had happened. Listen, Brandon Lake is awesome. I don't blame you,
Well,
Sherry.
let's start a rumor about Brandon Lake. I think he was taken as well. I think he was at his New York apartment.
Your tongue.
And a group of operatives came up the elevator and in the middle of the night took him. What?
Sherry says he was snubbed at the Grammys. Nobody really clapped for him because the Grammys are a bunch of heathens. Is that why? I would clap for Brandon Lake. I would stand up for Brandon Lake. He's awesome. And she says, spacecraft, no clue about that. I'm not interested.
Those are fighting words. So fine, Sherry. I am not interested in Brandon Lake. And I don't hope that he gets taken by CIA operatives. But if it happens, right, it'll make the story more interesting.
Emmanuel says, what about the controversy with Billie Eilish and the Indian
Billie Eilish.
tribe?
Billie Eilish. This was interesting because X took aim at Billie Eilish over the last 24 hours.
A lot of people did, yeah.
She and for those who didn't follow it, she used some of her speech to go super woke, which she's a terrible person no matter what. Talented, terrible person. And she made some kind of lecture about nobody's illegal on stolen land, right? Mm-hmm. And so there was and this all could be just trash, not true, but it was funny anyhow. So even if it was satire, it's funny. That there was an Indian tribe that said that her mansion is on native land. And there was an attorney who said, we'd be very happy to do a self-eviction and donate your mansion back to the stolen land that is this Indian tribe.
Yeah.
And that counter was pretty famous.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people posting like, okay, well, I guess we can just come over and move in with you then.
Well, the whole logic is stupid. It's really dumb. Because if you have a snippet of history of maybe, 40 years, you're pretty dumb. 100 years, you're pretty dumb. If you stop like at the 1600s, you're pretty dumb, right? And how cultures were built, how countries were built, where people really came from, and was it nice and everybody was just getting along and it was all the pilgrims and exchanging gifts and eating together and whatever? No, it was it was brutal. There was savagery. We human beings as a whole, when we're in really primitive scenarios, we do very primitive things. And so the Indians are no different. I mean, I know we're trying culturally to create a narrative where they're just these peaceful kumbaya groups, right? Mm-hmm. And then you get these dumb little artists that have 7 brain cells, and then they believe that, and they're like, well, if that's true, because they're using some logic, if that's true that we came over here and brutalized them and they were just this peace-loving group and never touched a fly and they just loved buffaloes, and how dare an injustice of epic proportions.
Yeah.
Then you get a lecture of someone who can't, if we really dead set, right? The tribes in the United States were really, taken advantage of and really mistreated and whatever. Fine. What is the reparation? How do you repair that in the future? What do you do? Do you do it? Do you hold somebody accountable for a couple hundred years ago? What are you willing to do personally to right that wrong and to solve that injustice? Sorry note? What?
I mean, education on if something were wrong and evil, and let's go ahead and put guidelines in place so that that doesn't happen again, and we've all learned from it.
Well, that's how we learn, is we do things wrong until we figure it out and start doing it right. You don't go revisit before you learn something and then hold yourself accountable for stuff you hadn't learned yet. Yeah. As small villages, they can completely operate like the utopian society because there's less personalities, less possibility of things going wrong and whatever. You get big groups of people, and as your civilization grows, you have to mitigate the downsides of different philosophies, different cultures, like different points of view. And that's very hard, right?
Yeah.
And if, let's just say, well, what makes the injustice of the Indians special? What about the Irish and the Chinese and the Arabs and the blacks, right? What about every group at some point were served an injustice? Who's then taking advantage of those people when every single person, there's been an injustice somewhere in their past?
Yeah.
Who's special and gets reparations, and who's just it's part of a wicked and brutal history that we've all suffered together.
Yeah, I mean, there was one artist, and it was Lady Gaga, and I love Lady Gaga, but she spoke about women in music and women honing their craft, and she's like, when you are in this industry, you're surrounded by men. And men are controlling kind of everything. So as a woman, it's important to use your voice and speak up and yada, yada, yada. And was this whole advocate for women. So it's like, okay, so we're going to talk about what? Immigrants and women and who else? Who else can we make something out of? And
there's this hierarchy, this really dumb hierarchy of things that the population will agree with you on. Like slavery, for instance, like it's at the top. Transgenderism, it was at the top for a little while. Gays, lesbians, that whole thing, that was at the top for a while. Women was at the top. But then you have the same kind of injustices that were served to other people that don't even register and move the needle at all. And so you're like, are you against injustice, or are you using injustice to justify bad behaviors going forward? Are you creating the same problem by trying to cure the injustice by creating just different injustice? That's why I feel like a lot of this is just power play. And if we know, and I brought up Socrates a little bit earlier, and there are three different ways of processing these, right? And there is pathos, there is what are the three? Logos,
ethos,
and ethos, right?
I don't even know what that is. How do I know?
Yeah,
I'd have heard of it, I guess.
And so you can see the situation where most people are managed by ethos. Right? No, pathos. Most of it's pathos. And so we put everything on how it makes me feel in the moment instead of the logic of where it registers mathematically on a spreadsheet. So I'm logos, you're pathos, right? And so if you put it through your filter of how this makes you feel, I might say something like, innocent blacks were sold into slavery and they had to work against their will in the United States. And you'd put that through how that makes you feel. And it's already been programmed that makes you feel terrible, that person had to suffer through that kind of injustice. And then I can say that another history, another ethnic group, I can say this person was starting a business and the government ganged up against them and they lost everything that they had, right? When you put that through the filter, you have to figure out whether or not the black guy who was sold into involuntary servitude is a worse injustice than an innocent guy was ganged up by a government and he lost something. Who do you feel worse for? Who connects with you? Who you see yourself in? So it's easy when you say like, okay, well, ladies got out of the kitchen and they joined the workforce, right? And then they get treated differently than men. Well, you're a lady, and so that's going to hit different next to you. Like, I wouldn't want to leave and then have some kind of mistreatment against me. And then me, I'm not a lady, and I feel differently about it. I can agree with you that everybody should be treated the same. So, but my reaction to it isn't to create another injustice, because Logos would tell me injustices are bad. We just established injustices are terrible. Don't do them anymore. And then you, because you're going to feel emotional, connection with it, you're going to be like, yeah, we need to right this wrong. Even if I created another injustice, we got to make this one right.
Yeah. I mean, you're not a career activist. There are people who are like, activism is what I do. And I sent you a video recently, and this guy had said, have you ever seen a cause just get fixed and everybody goes about their day?
No, that's why it's a power play.
Yeah. Like, I activated for this cause. I got loud and I signed petitions and I picketed and I went to the courts and I did whatever. And we righted this wrong and now everything's fine. And then I went and had a normal day. No, on to the next cause. Let's find something else. And that feels a little inauthentic.
So you're in a perpetual solution that never gets fixed, right? You never have to cure the cancer. It is just something that will give me purpose as I'm a perpetual activist against something and nobody solves it. Because Logos would say that you're hitting an unsolvable problem, right? Because it is a symptom of structure. You're getting an output from something and taking the symptom and masking it or dressing it up. You know, like if I said student loans are terrible and kids are paying them off for 60 years and they never make any dent in their whatever. We're mad about this. Hey, there's a kid right now that needs a student loan, and it means he's going to get an education, but you got to issue him the same loan that you were just going. Yeah, give it to him because an education needs better. So then I'm looking at like, whoa, structurally, you just created 50 years from now having the exact same thing that you're railing against today.
Yeah, and we've been in a discussion with a good friend of ours, of our family, who has some in-laws that are immigrants, and we were talking about the process of becoming an American citizen. And this friend of ours said, well, it's incredibly difficult. So even though they've been here for decades, they've never started the process to become a citizen. And the reasoning is still because it's difficult. And I was like, then why aren't you working to change that? If it's so difficult and it's this impossible process, then why aren't we outraged over that? Hey, what are we doing to make this a little more easily done or streamlined or what have you? Not just fighting about why you don't need to do it at all. You know what I mean? Like, fix the problem then. Don't just be a career activist about the problem. Now,
well, we don't do that in our personal lives either. We are symptom, we worship at the symptom and never at the cure. Right. So if you're like, I feel really terrible after I eat a cheeseburger. Right. Mm-hmm. We'll take some Tums. Right. And fix that old stomach. And then the next time you have a chance to eat the cheeseburger, you're going to be like, I got this under control. I could just Tums it and then I can eat the cheeseburger.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
Fix the symptoms.
And then so you have whole industries that all they do is give you Band-Aids for the symptoms, right? And they really, really, really don't want you to ever cure it because then they can't sell you Band-Aids. And so human beings are really good at perpetual symptoms, never looking at the origin and finding the cure for the thing that's causing the symptoms.
Yeah, I heard such a good quote the other day. Not to get into health and wellness because we know that algorithms will hide that, but it was this this doctor I follow, and she's like a nutritionist and a trainer and all this other stuff. And she was saying how when it comes to changing your body, getting healthier, whatever, mindset is so important. Mm-hmm. You've got to change your mindset or you will not stick to it. And she even said, I don't like using the word goals. When someone's like, well, what are your goals? How are you going to reach your goals? She's like, in my family, we don't have goals. We have standards. This is the standard that you will maintain forever. This isn't a temporary fix. This isn't just something you're going to do until. This isn't a goal you meet and you go about your day. It's a standard that stays. And I thought that was like, yes, that's exactly it, is let's stop this mindset. It could be health and wellness. It could be anything where I'm going to do this thing until I get to here. And then I'm kind of done with it. Or fixed, permanently standard set. Do you think we don't do that in a lot of different
practical
things?
And I think that that's a reflection of the softness of human beings. Like, human beings were adaptable and built for a challenge that's really hard, and they push themselves beyond limits to be able to get there. And then you have the spineless ones that their nuts haven't dropped. And then they have to give them a little encouragement to stay in it by saying, it's a 5K, right? In your brain, you're like, that's the goal. Get through the 5K and then get it at a certain time at a certain pace. Get it in your goal and sign. Well, there's going to be 50% of the people that are not going to be able to do that. And they're going to feel really terrible that they came up short. Right. So someone comes along and says, okay, since we got a lot of these pussies around us that can't keep a goal and, work through it, they're going to have reasons, excuses and whatnot. Let's tell them that if you get halfway, right, the standard is you just keep trying. Right. So we're changing the philosophy, the way we program ourselves, and the not achieving is almost as good as achieving. And it works. It's practical because we got a bunch of people who can't handle challenges that are difficult.
Yeah. Because I also hear a lot. It's consistency over perfection. And yes, that's a baby step for someone trying to change. Is you're not going to be perfect every day, but try to just consistently do your best. But the mindset thing, I was talking to my husband the other day and I realized it's been over a year now, almost 2 years, I think, that I've been gluten-free. And this is a big deal when we're talking about me personally. I have never, not one time, cheated on that. Not once. I've eaten gluten accidentally where I ate something and didn't realize, oh crap, look at that's in here. And then I had to stop. I've never, ever, ever backslid or purposely cheated and eaten something I shouldn't have. And if you would have known me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have given you every excuse in the book as to why I deserve this, why I want this little treat, why I'm just going to have this today because I'm good every other day. And I think that is because I didn't go into it saying, I'm going to try to do better. I'm going to try to avoid. Maybe I'll just have a little treat here and there. I said, I don't do this anymore.
Yeah. You had an understanding for how your brain works, and you use the mental checkmate to get you where you're going.
I said, I am a different person.
That's a way of accomplishing
I don't do this anymore.
A hard thing.
Yeah, started my workout program. It wasn't to get fit for summer. It wasn't, I'm just going to try to work out a little more. It was, I'm different. I'm a person who works out 3 days a week. From now until the end of time, I'm a different person. This is what I do now.
Right.
And it's that mindset shift from temporary to permanent, which I think people kind of get hung up on.
Yeah. Yeah. Angelina says it's very difficult if we research it. They should better the process. Stop going after all immigrants and go after the ones who are a threat. Let's talk about immigrants and immigration, because I think the populace feels differently than I do. When's your family come over here?
Oh, gosh, I don't even know. It's been a while.
Okay. You've been here for 100 years? Your family?
I feel like my grandmother's mother, I think, came from Germany. I'm not positive, but I would say it wasn't super long time ago.
Okay.
I don't know.
And what do you think the standards were when we were building this country? How do you think people were told yes to come into this country? Like what were we looking for in immigration?
What were we looking for?
Or let's use more like, what should you look for? Like if you craft what your immigration policy is, it has to be centered around what you need, right? Not what you want.
Yeah, if there's somebody that we can learn from or has skills that we are lacking, let's bring them in.
So recruiting some kind of expertise.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Anybody that we know is safe, nonviolent, can be contributing to our society.
Okay.
Why not?
Okay. So they've proven that they are, they're temporary in nature, that if they have to have history where they can't have criminal records elsewhere. They couldn't have gotten into any kind of problems. They can't be some kind of political activist in a different country that's making it their way. So they have to be safe from spies or some saboteurs that are coming over here. They got to have some kind of skill set. Somebody has to vouch for them. Somebody has to really say it's on me. And then if you can't yourself make a proclamation of how awesome you are, because it's very unlikely that you're going to proclaim something other than I'm awesome, I'm going to be perfect here, trust me, bro, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so going after, especially making sure that they're safe, making sure that they have not committed crimes elsewhere. Okay, so those are pretty good standards. And today, like we had a good decade of. By the way, if a country is warring and somebody is fearful of their life, even though they don't check all of those other boxes, should you rescue them as a charitable act to rescue someone from another country?
I was leaning towards yes until you said if they don't check the other boxes.
They don't check the other boxes. Like they're just fearful of their life.
If it's just a family that is not doing harm to anyone and they're scared, I personally would want the ability to go elsewhere if I was scared in my country. But if I'm a hardened criminal and I murdered someone, and then I say, hey, now the crime here is so bad, I want to come to your country, I'm going to have reservations about that.
Okay, so you're saying that if they're an asylum seeker, they have to check the other boxes as well. So they're just no different. You don't have to cordon out the asylum seekers. You just have a person that says, oh, it sucks here, I want to go there, checkbox, 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 and then you come here not because you're an asylum seeker, because you check the boxes of entry. Fair?
Fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
We had a decade of not doing any of that. The Democrats wanted voters so bad that they were just willing to let tons of people in so that they can, pad their districts and pad their numbers so they can win elections, right? Mm-hmm. Terrible actions, terrible what those administrations tolerated it for as long. And so now the question is, when you have those people who haven't checked those boxes, like Angelina said, that the ones who are a threat. Well, listen, my boxes and your boxes that we just created are all threats. If somebody doesn't have a specialization, they're a threat because they're unusable in being a working, contributing citizen, right?
So
that's
not
a threat.
A violent threat, but a threat to an economy?
A threat to our economy, we chose, and we did this on purpose, that we are a social welfare state. You cannot be a social welfare state and have open immigration. Let's just say we didn't do social safety nets and we invited somebody over and they just had to fricking survive on their own, right? Mm-hmm. You can care far less about who comes through the door when there isn't a menu of benefits that you can get, both direct benefits and indirect benefits of being able to live here. So once you go social benefits, then that stuff only has to apply to people who are actually citizens.
Yeah, and would you see a direct correlation between someone that has nothing, no money, no job, no prospects, and the increased chance of committing a crime like theft?
For sure.
So there is a risk there.
There is a threat there. So if they don't have a specialization, they committed crimes elsewhere, or they don't have anybody from vouching. That's like someone comes to stay over at your house. They need to do some couch surfing with you. You'd want to know that this person isn't terrible. They're going to say they're, awesome. They're going to clean up after themselves and whatever. But if, somebody out there that you don't trust and know is willing to say, no, they're cool. He's been at my place before. He didn't cause any damage, didn't murder anybody. Right. That means that's valuable to have someone to vouch for. And if you know that somebody has a criminal record elsewhere, the likelihood that they're come stay with you and be respectful of your household and your rules, very low. They're not a good rule follower if they've broken rules and laws. But to appeal to the emotional side, when you hear about a family that's in a war-torn country that might be killed because of the unrest of where they're coming from, you might feel like you want to invite them in, right? But the real psychology is, would you invite that family to come stay in your house with you, right? And use the same safety mechanisms that you would go through to qualify that family. As much as you want to help them, are they going to be a good guest? Are they or are they not? And you would have your own boxes, so the country should have its own boxes. Now, like what Angelina was saying, was start with the violent criminals, right? Mm-hmm. And if your first action is to come in this country illegally, then one of my boxes for standards, if you've not committed a crime, you can't check. So every one of the people who decided that their first interaction with the United States, even if invited by Democrats for their scam or their scheme, you broke the first rule. So you are not welcome. So I don't think from a logistics standpoint that it makes sense to start with people who aren't committing crimes, because obviously you have the biggest effect if you can remove violent criminals and gangs and drug dealers and all of those people first. But if in my investigation, I come across someone who's not a violent offender and they're breaking the law, right? then I have, as a enforcement, I have to figure out if I give this person a pass, right? But then Kelin, who is an actual citizen, I have to lecture you that you have to follow the rules when this person I came across is not following the rules. And I was just able to say, no big deal. Your whole, the lawlessness of this country and your legal system is in jeopardy when you don't enforce laws on one group of people and you strictly enforce it against all the people who deserve to be here. That's the unfairness of it.
So I did actually, somebody had said, look into it. It's a difficult process. I did look into it a little bit. And the only thing really that made me question is it does say in order to become a citizen, you must have lived here for up to 5 years. It's like 3 to 5 years. So you have to be here as not a citizen in order to earn that citizenship. Right. And there are things that go along after that. But you have like a green card or some sort of documentation stating you can be here. Come prove
yourself that you should be here and can behave appropriately and add to society.
So if they came and arrested you and kicked you out during that 5 years because you are not yet a citizen.
Well, no, you wouldn't be illegal.
Right.
They're not taking green carded people and kicking them out.
That was my only point are people claiming that, oh, well, they're getting kicked out through no fault of their own. They just, it's not been long enough to become a citizen. Or are they here, living here, taking benefits, but never had that green card or their documentation stating they could be here?
If I come across you and you're a green card holder and you are not compliant with the terms of your green card, then you go away. If you've broken the law and coming here illegally, that's an immediate go away. And starting with the violent criminals and the people who are actually taxing our benefits and welfare system and not being good contributors. Like, and that's the thing, like people always say that the immigration process is too difficult, right? If we'd only make it easier, then they can get here legally, right? But the way the market is controlled is if you need more people, right, then you lower your prices. If you want to sell more of an electronics thing, you lower your prices to invite more people because you need more people. You don't lower the standard if say, hey, are we getting enough of these immigrants in here? Oh, no. Okay, let's make it easier. Make a fast pass for immigration because we need these people. We're not looking in terms of coming to this country isn't something that, we do half-heartedly. There's a purpose for bringing someone in from somewhere else, and we have to have strict guidelines to make sure that we don't get flooded by people who then are unmanageable. There are too many people here to be able to manage and keep track of and make sure they're following all their stuff. So immigration, if we can get 50% of the ones that are not supposed to be, no one would choose to have them live with them. Now let's look at the 20 million or the 10 million that are left here. And now those agencies that manage it and regulate it can actually notice if somebody decides to not show up for their hearings or whatever.
Yeah. And it's funny too. I've seen people, since we are in award season, like we've had the Oscars, we've had the Grammys and a few others. They're like, how funny is it that all these people calling for open borders and let people in are saying so from an award show that has a literal physical barrier around it, that has security. You have to be invited and pass through security to even enter. There's dogs sniffing around at some as part of security. And it's like, oh, really? I thought everybody should just go and do whatever they want. Clearly you think security and borders and a method of doing things and an invitation is important, right?
Yeah.
That's the hypocrisy that gets me.
Matthew said, Frank Sinatra said it best 80 years ago. If poor people are more likely to commit crimes, maybe we should increase the minimum wage and use our taxes to help them versus giving tax breaks to billionaires. Half of me wants to respond to that, but I think we've gone over that one a billion times. Poor people. Okay, let's go to Logos here. I'll do my
Logos.
All right. If you engineered it back and said poor people are only poor because minimum wage is low, then I would believe you.
Yeah.
But it would take a poor person auditor and with a curiosity as what goes into a poor person, what made them poor, and they follow them around for 6 months and find out what science is, what behaviors are making them poor. And they almost like the psychologists with the little notepad, every time they do something that's contributing to being poor, I bet you when they get your notebook, it's like minimum wage. It was minimum wage the whole time. It wasn't poor buying decisions and where you invest your time or the, where you spend your free time or the people that you hang around with. None of that, right?
Yeah.
It's minimum wage.
Go ahead. I was going to make another point, but
go, before I move on to off of that one.
So and I've told this before too, back during COVID when everybody got those stimulus checks and it was like, hey, free money, go stimulate the economy. Look and see what some people did. I, at the time, had a coworker that took their money and they went and they bought a motorcycle with it. And then guess what happened? They couldn't afford it. They stopped making payments. Motorcycle got repoed. And that was a big old waste of time and money.
Right.
Now, they are now either in debt or at a loss. Is that because they should have been making more money at their job? Or did they just make a terrible decision? And I've seen that over and over again where people that I'm around that will blow off work, not show up on time, fail out of school, not cover whatever responsibility it is. Then they don't get something the person who did all those things got, and they say, it's the system working against me. Is it though? Because here's everything I did to get here, and here's what you didn't do when you had every opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I think every poor person, if they take benefits, they should be coupled with someone who's not poor, so they can, like a big brothers, big sisters thing, where they can learn how to make better decisions. They can get information and insights. They can have accountability so that, I'm looking into the future and where we're going to have universal basic income, or like Elon says, universal high income. Like mathematically, that sounds great. But from a market standpoint, like if you give everyone money, right, without justifying where the value is being redistributed from, it's no different than saying, okay, every socialist wants to take something from a billionaire and give it to a person making minimum wage. That would be the injustice rectified, right?
Yeah. Well,
if you were in denial of to become a billionaire, right? Now have you just hampered billionaires from doing what they do? And now have you hampered the person and you just gave them on amount of money, like your $2,000 stimulus check, and all you did is enabled bad behaviorists to do bigger bad behaviors. And now you look up and say, we gave you all this money. You've destroyed your life because you had more. Maybe the poorness is keeping it curtailed, so you're less dangerous than you otherwise would be. But again, it's an interesting socialism versus capitalism thing. I know why Matthew is very pro-socialism and very anti-capitalist, because it's not exactly covert that if you go after the billionaires and you want to reward the pooriers, right, then pooriers. Yeah, made up that.
Yeah, it's kind of funny the term you said, universal high income, is really just universal income, because it's, if everybody's the same, then what's considered high? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just sort of
capitalism is gonna shift, where right now a lot of costs are in labor, right? So if you have a widget and you know how much labor went into making that widget all along from the innovation, the production of it, the invention of it, the distribution of it, the marketing of it, and so on and so forth, you got a lot of people's time that are built into every product. When you have robots and automation doing it, you take all of the labor costs and you suck it out of it. So the items can cost way less than it does right now. And so like if you shift that and you rip labor out of the cost of products, when you have high income, it's proportional to what the cost of things are. So if a robot built the car entirely, then really your costs are going to be the raw materials and the labor costs of the robots that freaking build it. So you might have a $70,000 car, and now it costs $10,000 because there was only $5,000 in material in it, and screws, bolts, rivets, steel, aluminum, and whatever. And so if I gave you any amount of money that was, if it's 10% as expensive as it used to be, and I gave you any money to cover the cost of a car, money just kind of disappears now, right? And so that's where capitalism in the future might not even be something that's worth paying attention to or trying to accumulate, and it shifts human nature because that's not the goal of trading time for money. It is something else, and I don't know what that something else is going to be. There's got to be a trade-off, because you're still when you're receiving something, that value has to come from something. And my best guess is going to be there's going to be a tweener stage between labor production and automation production. And the robots themselves are going to be taxed as if they were labors. And we're only going to have that value as compared to when it was labor. So if you're the fry cooker, right? And for McDonald's to cook fries, it costs them, we'll say what, $30,000 is what a fry cook is making. Well, whatever it is, It could be 20, could be 40. I just don't know.
Yeah.
And so they work 8 hours a day. They're paid $30,000. And so every fry they sell, right, has parts of their labor in it. They charge more than the labor costs them and whatever. Now I put a robot in there. Now the robot cost me $100,000 and it lasts 10 years, right? So every year my labor cost goes from $30,000 to $10,000. Now, I'm the government, and I'm going to come along and say, hey, you're using robots instead of human beings. Now, there's a $10,000 year per tax on your robot. The company sees and say the labor cost went from 30 to 10, but now it's going to go to 20. It's still cheaper than human labor. And then they take that $10,000 and they give it to the old fry cook that used to be there. The fries come down exponentially because the cost of the labor came down. And so you were making 30,000 now. You were making 30,000. Now you're making 10,000, but maybe all of your costs go down to 10% of what it was made. So when I go through that math, I don't know what the end result's going to be. I don't know how it's going to actually play out, but that's the most likely scenario as far as I'm concerned.
Matthew said something earlier I really want to address.
Yeah.
Why does it matter why they are poor? People at every level of income deserve dignity. Here's the thing, Matthew. If you had a family member that was aging, ill, couldn't work, was losing money, maybe they weren't even aging, maybe they had a severe injury, something happened to them, and they're now in this poor bracket, you'd probably have no problem caring for them, keeping their dignity, giving whatever you could. But let's say you moved in a family member or buddy of yours into your house because they were hard pressed for cash, they didn't make a lot, and you said, not a problem, I will help take care of you and give you dignity. And as you're getting up for work in the morning, you're like, hey, man, you going to work today? And they're like, nah, I didn't. I was out last night. I was partying a bit. I'm hungover. I'm not going to go today. Oh, are you going to get paid? Nah, I'll go tomorrow. And they didn't. And then maybe they went out and they said, oh, I bought a new video game. Well, did you pay half your rent or did you buy any groceries today? No. I spent it on my video games, man, because, you'll cover that, right? Okay, well, how about tomorrow? You're going to go to work tomorrow? No. I mean, you got me, right? I'll give you my check when I can. There's going to be a point you're like, bruh, I can't afford to cover you all the time. I can't afford for you to live off of me. Your decisions are keeping you stuck. There is a difference and there is a reason why people are poor. And it could be a perfectly good reason and it could be bullshit. So yeah, I want to know, because I can't afford to take care of everybody if they're stuck because of their own choices. Matthew, if you can afford to take care of everybody who's stuck because of their choices, by all means. But most people can't, and that's why it matters.
Well, there's an indignity in being poor if you ask most people. There might be 10% of the people who don't like money and they like simple lives and they find happiness and not having to deal with financial pressures. And those ones are like, do you like being poor? They would say, yeah, I absolutely love it. It's actually my goal to be poor. But everybody who's not that, 10% is probably high in that number. If you ask everybody else, do you like being poor? Then it's not a disease. It's something that can be changed. And the people like Matthew almost feel like the poor people are going to be necessary for their power play. And we got to keep them poor so that we can keep them controlled. I think it's something that it's not a disease. You're not stuck being poor forever. It takes different decisions. It takes different information and different accountability. And so I don't think anybody should suffer in a place. If you said that you had respiratory infection, I would not be fighting and convincing you that let's have some dignity in your respiratory infection. My goal would be like, do you like having the respiratory infection? No. Let's do some different things and try to make the indignity disappear, and then you could be a little happier than you were before. So yes, I think there should be much more shame and accountability in being poor. And you don't help those people by giving them lots of reasons to stay there because they're a victim of the poorness. You want to blame a billionaire for the plight of a poor person when my auditor, like the most real thing I can do is take a non-poor person and couple them up with someone who's poor and their regimen. Do you think the rich person is going to, at the end of the day, saying, he couldn't have done anything different. He's just a victim of circumstance. He couldn't have made different choices. Man, this thing sucks for him. I bet you a high percentage, not everyone, but a high percentage of the people who are poor are just cast out because of bad decisions. They're stuck there because of their own behavior.
Yeah, he says most poor people didn't choose to be there. Well,
but they didn't choose it.
Yeah.
But you can be mobile and get out of whatever you're doing. Like I would say if you're super poor and you're super disappointed, everything you got, scrap it and start over. You got nothing to lose whatsoever. Assume that since you don't know what decision led you here, assume all of your decisions led here. Go over here and do everything different. And if you end up still being poor, then there was no risk. So there was a huge advantage. I got a 15-year-old, right? Perfect credit score, never made a bad financial decision. When he goes on day one, do you think I'm going to say, hey, go make some bad decisions to set your life up for lots of hardships going on? Or I'd be like, you're pure, right?
Yeah.
You have no blemishes. This is the best day of your life.
You're not going to be like YOLO.
Exactly.
Just do what feels good.
Yeah. There's dignity in having no accountability and no repercussions. So these people are serving repercussions for their behaviors. And it's up to somebody who didn't do those things to talk them out of the bad behaviors that make them end up there. And I'm not looking at the exceptions, Matthew, because I know in your brain you're saying, what about the sick person? And what about the person whose family gets in? Those are the minority of cases.
Yeah, that's what ticks me off the most is when you start saying things that make sense. And then they go, oh, so you must hate all people that have an incurable disease. You must hate everybody that got hurt or got old. Not at all what we're talking about. So don't even come at us with that.
All right. So Penny Lane, you talk about billionaires like is a normal thing and that you can legally become a billionaire. You cannot become a billionaire in a system that is not set up unfairly. That's not normal. Well, here's the thing, and this is a mathematical proposition. I've always advocated that the reason that you have so many billionaires is you have a lack of competition for the marketplace, right? So if you have you have to make the argument, are you excluded from the marketplace? No, everybody is included. Everybody can participate. And if you only have out of 1,000 people, 5 people that try, what do you think is going to happen? Of the 5 people that try, one of them are going to become a billionaire. But what should have happened is 1,000 people should have tried. And that billionaire might have got a smaller cut of the overall picture of the marketplace. Now, are there laws and regulations and bureaucracies that protect certain people? Yes, I advocate against it every day. Free money that you don't deserve, that you didn't have to work for, and you're insulated from market forces should all disappear. It should be the Hunger Games of business. The best practicer, the best merit makes a bunch of money. So if you can't argue that a billionaire like Elon Musk didn't deserve every penny and all the value that he's worth. He risked it all multiple times, invented companies that all of us benefit from.
Yeah.
He did it the right way. Now you can take a financier that all they did was like Jeffrey Epstein, right? Jeffrey Epstein became a billionaire and he didn't deserve one penny of that. He was not good at his job. He was insulated because of corruption. So if you were like, we want to take all of his money, right? Because he didn't deserve it anyway and tax the shit out of him because it was ill-gotten from corruption, then I would be halfway listening to that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look up, I think his name is Brian Johnson, current billionaire, and read his story. And he's told people before about it. He was very poor at one point. He was very depressed. He was struggling to take care of his family. He said he was at one point going to take his life. He was in a real bad way. But he was very inventive and smart and worked and took a loss and worked and took a loss and was out of money and was very, very poor. And then he came up with an amazing idea. He wasn't given anything. He worked for this. He created what is now known, I think, is Venmo, sold it, and is now a billionaire.
Yes.
So was that unfair? Was that an unfair system working against all of us, that this man who struggled until well into midlife finally hit it big on a business idea? He risked, sold it, and is now worth billions. Was that a system that cheated us?
So couple him with somebody else. Let's just say that he had a business plan. He got venture capital. He built a company with other person's money. So let's just take your poor person and we'll do a test. We'll send them $1,000 debit card, right? Mm-hmm. And we're going to take the Venmo guy and just go back to the early beginnings. No venture capital money. I'm going to give you $1,000 debit card and free money, invest it however you want, right? And then just have an evaluator that watch what the purchases of both of those people are. Did you invest in a liability that made you worse off with $1,000? You buy a TV, you go on a vacation, you go out to eat and whatever. And then you take the rich person, right? And how they would buy. They would buy things of value. And this is hypothetical. So they would buy things of value. Let's just say they bought some stocks or they bought some precious metals or they bought coins or whatever. And then you evaluate it and say, given the opportunity, right, to be blessed with some kind of resource, did you squander it and make your life worse? Or did you make something of it and create Venmo that then you sold off for $1 billion? Yeah. That would be a great test of decision making.
Like the coworker that blew the stimulus check on a motorcycle. We took ours, we fixed up the house we were living in and sold it.
Yep. You lowered your liabilities and you sold off an asset.
Yeah. Was it unfair to the coworker and I had some kind of leg up in the game? Or did we say, here's a good use of money and here's not?
Right. You made a better decision that had implications and, for the future, some rebates that you pulled from your decision making today. But short-sightedness, you did something that might have taken 3 years to pay off. All right. You probably did it shorter, but you were willing to not take an instant gratification moment and you pushed it off to say, my life is going to get better, but sometime in the future. Mm-hmm. Where poor people, if they're impulsive and they love gratifying themselves in the moment, then they won't be able to justify spending that money, not immediately being able to enjoy it for the prospect they might make something in the end. So if you spend, we'll say the average person spends $200 a year on lottery tickets, right? Mathematically, a very bad investment.
Yeah.
And then you take somebody else and say, I'm going to take that same amount of money, right? That you're spending on lottery tickets, and I'm going to literally do anything else with it. Do you think you will be ahead or behind that comparison? Because how much
seems like the safer bet
at the end of the $200, how much do you think, right?
Yeah.
The lottery ticket person is going to have $0. So I could go and buy a banana for $200 and check back at the end of the year and see who has more. I'll at least have a really crusty banana peel. You will have absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But the impulsive person is going to say, yeah, but I could win, right? I might have $2 million because I absolutely won. And in their brain, that's actually math that they hold their hat on, right?
Yeah. The risk. I could say, all right, you take your money and you go buy a bunch of lottery tickets. I'm going to take my money and I'm going to go buy some supplies. I made something with that supplies and I sold it. And now I have money. You bought a bunch of paper that you threw in the garbage can.
Yeah. So would you say that...
Is that a rigged system?
Would you say that the lottery is a rigged system? Is it a corruption? Because it gives people the hope that they're going to win $2 million when in reality, when it plays out for most of the people, they end up having less, right, than what they started with. Huge liability as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, to me, you'd have to, I don't know, they'd have to sort of be shady and hide that fact. And is that fact hidden?
It's not. If you ask anybody, what is the likelihood that you're going to win very high? No, I'm probably not going to win. So how much money do you invest in something that you're going to be at a zero? Oh, I'm going to put $200
I think they
into
said
that sucker.
You have a better chance of being struck by lightning than striking it rich in the lottery.
Right.
Play against your own.
So it's not a lack of information. It's
Yeah.
not, nobody's forcing you to do it. You have the you have the opportunity to say yes or no. It's just that you've been tempted by a very terrible risk versus somebody who's going to take. Is it easier to start a business than win the lottery?
Probably,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it harder? Require a lot of work?
Yep.
Make a lot of demands?
Yep.
Get you might not work out it's not a sure thing, right?
Still a risk.
It's still a risk, but what is more palatable for your normal poor person mentality? The lottery is the big payoff because you don't have to invest time. You find out right away if you won or not. Like what if you had to invest a lottery and you had to wait a year to see if you won? You think sales would drop?
Probably.
I think so. The impulsive nature fueling it.
Yeah.
Penny said, and you can't ever really take something from a billionaire. The number is so high that anything you take can be made back in a day. And for the most part, a lot of you don't know what billionaires even are. You're trying to
like
connect.
Is it Scrooge McDuck that's just swimming in a pit of money?
No,
in
like
their
when you
mansion?
when you say that Elon Musk has $823 billion, right? It's not a vault that has a bunch of cash that's floating around. It is value of things that you own, right? So if you took your net worth, do you ever sling your net worth along with other people? Do you know what it is?
I have no idea.
So if you took your net worth and said, compared to me, it's like if you make $100,000 a year and every year your net worth goes up by 100,000, then you've got 100% parity between increasing your value. In the business world, you're investing $100,000, and because of the multiple of the things that you're creating in new value, your $100,000 is way more than your original investment, right?
Uh-huh.
If in your personal life from your paycheck, you can get a 1-for-1 parity with what you end up in your assets and what your net worth is at the end of the year. Make it 1-for-1. Make it 50%. So you make $100,000, $50,000, you get more value every year. You're not getting multiples in business, right? Like they are on the business side, because you're not adding value. You're just being a consumer. You're trying to stockpile value into something, and hopefully it stays the same or goes up.
Yep. It's funny. Penny Lane says, here comes the entitled person lecture about lazy poor people. That's such an old argument. There is no upward mobility.
There is upward mobility.
For most people these days, especially under 30. Why do you think they're all living with their parents? You're using extreme examples. I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth. Penny Lane, you need to stop putting emotion on this argument.
Ooh, pathos goes emotionless.
That's what this is. The entitled making an argument about lazy people. No, we said your choices. There is a very logical and real connection between choices you make and the outcome. It's not, oh, they're all lazy. They're all lazy and they're just a bunch of bums. No, we said if you come into money and you spend it on something and blow it, that's going to be a bad outcome for you. If you don't go to work every day or have something of value to sell or do something that increases your chances of receiving money, you're going to have a bad outcome. If you do this, and in no way is it just this emotional appeal of you're lazy, you don't deserve it. It's a very logical argument. This equals this. If you don't do it, you won't get it. That's our argument here. To say an entitled person calling people lazy is one, not accurate, and two, all you're doing then is using emotion to justify bad decisions and not having the outcome you want.
Yeah, and the examples that I use were outrageous, but I am, I am completely convinced that I could take any single person, take full control of all the decision making, and make them into a different person tomorrow. So the reason that there is you're gonna listen to Penny Lane and say that I'm a victim of this circumstance, and no matter what I do, I'm going to fail. I don't have financial upward mobility because your definition of mobility is somebody's going to give you something rather than you're going to go out there and get it for yourself.
Yeah.
You would have to convince me that if you tried, that someone was going to deprive you of what you were determined to go and get. And that's where my exception would be. Yes, you're not going to get a free pass where people are just going to spread money over you that you don't deserve. You're going to figure out how to become an asset somewhere of something of value, and you're going to trade it to other people who are valuing what it is that you're doing, and they're going to give you money as a fair trade for whatever it is that you did.
Here's another ridiculous thing they try to do. I forgot. Every poor person is a loser drunk. My bad. Matthew, when people are trying to make a point, oftentimes they will use imagery or hypothetical examples to make a point. This allows the listener to, I don't know, relate to what they're saying and maybe come up with an idea of a situation in which their point might be involved. It's not every instance is the hypothetical picture I created for you. It's not what we're saying. That's ridiculous. That's a toddler's mentality. Because I gave you one hypothetical example to create imagery in your mind of a point does not mean every single person who's not a billionaire is a drunk and is a loser. That's a toddler's point of view. And I think you know that.
That is the snarkiest I've ever heard you be
on. It makes me snarky.
But okay, let's.
I hate when people do that crap.
Let's do this. Okay. Mm-hmm. The illustration. Think about it like when we say bad decisions. Okay. Mm-hmm. We all know that if you wanted to do something, either a decision you made was either helping the cause towards your goal or hindering your cause towards a goal.
Yeah.
The example of being a video game playing loser drunk is examples of things that probably do not help you become a billionaire. If I were to take a list and say things that help you become a billionaire, I'm never going to say, make sure you get 6 hours of gameplay per day. Right.
Yeah.
I am going to say other things. So when we say poor decisions, those are outrageous things. And maybe the person that's following it might be environmental. Maybe you've surrounded yourself by tools that are destructive, distracting, and tempting to do things that aren't good for you. Maybe it's people that you're hanging around. You have a bunch of lowlives who are just trying to convince you to not be as ambitious as your brain really wants you to be. Maybe it's truly you are just you need guidance and you need people that are wiser than you that are around you. It could be all of those things. It doesn't have to be a coping mechanism like video game play or alcohol or drug use or anything, but it's clearly we can all agree that those things will never help somebody get to the thing that they're getting to ever.
Yeah. Let's say here's an example you'll like better. Technology, AI, big right now. Like you said, in the future, going to be massive, going to be very, very valuable. If I'm a hardworking person and I go to work every day, doing my typical day-to-day job, I clock in 9 to 5, I clock out, and I put my hours in, whatever. And I make some money for that. But let's say my coworker comes in, does that, but they are really knowledgeable about technology and they're really getting into AI. And they're like, man, this is going to be really valuable in the future. I'm going to start building on this more. And I'm still coming to work every day and I'm clocking in at 9 and clocking out at 5 and I'm making my paycheck and I'm living a good life. And this person is like, oh, I just discovered this could be done with AI. Oh, and I could harness this with AI. And after 5 years or more of us on this same path, you say, I have now built something that is very valuable. And you go to investors and you show them what you did. And they're like, Joe, this is an amazing idea. And this is going to revolutionize an industry. And I'm going to give you $5 billion to buy your idea. You are now a billionaire. Was I a lazy, drunk loser? No. I went to work. I clocked in. I clocked out. I fed my family. I lived my life. You found something innovative and valuable and sold it. And you're a billionaire. Now, do I get to come back and be like, oh, where's my dignity? You selfish, entitled billionaire. No, two totally different tracks that had two different outcomes.
Mm-hmm. And at no point were you deprived of doing the exact same thing.
Nope.
Yep. I love this. I got at least two people really gone. And Penny says, you can't be mobile. That's the point. And it gets worse every day. Convince me. Like, how can you not be mobile? There's not any obstacles. Like, you can have traps. You could have been trapped in your previous decisions, but those traps are more psychological traps than physical traps. Like, you might argue it, like, for instance, when you started on some of your things, you had some things that you were convinced you could never do. Yeah. And I said, no, you can actually do them. You think that right now because you're stuck in that mud right now. Yeah. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, that's
really, you cliches.
Yes. Yeah. You could get out of that with a little assistance for someone who will remind you that it can be done. You're more mobile before you get stuck. You're less mobile when you're in the trap.
Yeah, and I'll agree too that there is something to be said about generational. I don't know if you would call it generational poorness, maybe, where someone was raised in a household with not a lot of money, and they were raised in a household with not a lot of money, and they were raised in whatever. And you're kind of raised in this mindset, which to some people could look as though you would get stuck. But it doesn't mean you have to be. There are still choices you can make to make things different.
Well, not like when these people are saying you're just a victim of it and you can't do anything different, because the impulse is like, if I'm going to study for the exams and I'm going to take the entire weekend and you decide that you're going to go out partying and not do any of the exams, I could have told you ahead of time that I'm going to fare better because of my decision making. Yeah. I took what I wanted and I shelved it for this thing that I wanted. I want to read this here. There's no upward economic mobility when it comes to housing, healthcare, now education. Upward economic mobility. Traditionally, like if you buy into the education scam, right, then here's what it's about. Like it's a delivery mechanism. So how much college do you think Joe Danyi has?
I think you said a couple classes.
Yeah, a couple classes, right? And education that is delivered to you, or couple that with how much actual research and education do I get every freaking day? I've never stopped learning.
I say probably a lot.
Every freaking day,
yeah.
Right? I am always educating myself because we live in a world where education is on demand everywhere you look. You're never deprived of it. Now, if you're like, no, the only education that I can get is if someone forces me, to go to a place and listen to another person and take some tests and get some kind of certifications, then yes, I agree. It's hard to do that because education costs so much. What do you think my education bill was last month? I probably had maybe 20 sessions where I learned something, got it dealt into a topic. What do you think my bill was at the end of the month?
0.
How many people were forcing me to go grab that education?
0.
Okay. So if you buy into I'm going to deliver it to you because you've got too much weakness and discipline to do it, you're absolutely right. Right?
Yeah. I mean, how much college education do I have?
I don't know, 4 years,
yeah.
6 years?
I have a degree.
Yeah.
I have a degree from a university. I bet you are immeasurably smarter than me, more successful than me, depending on how you measure success. Mm-hmm. You probably have more than I do because you went this way and I went this way. Right. There's no rigged system. There's no the man keeping me down. There's no you were handed something and I wasn't. I even went the route of education, got a degree, and I went about what I cared about. And you went about what you cared about. And because that is more lucrative to you, where's the rigged system keeping us down?
Yeah, it's psychological.
Choices.
It's a victim deliver what I want to me, and I'm only willing to do whatever because everything else is hard, and I want it now, and I'm impulsive. If that's not entitled, not the entitled billionaires or the entitled Joe and Kelin, the entitled thing is the poor people are super entitled with what they're willing and not willing to do to escape their circumstances and blame everybody else why they're not there.
I mean, somebody just said earlier when we were talking about that space shuttle that was rescheduled, someone is like, boring. I don't care about that. I don't either. I'm not going to sit and learn about space exploration. But if somebody becomes wealthy because they totally what's the word I'm looking for? Re-incentivized, what is the word I'm looking for? God dang it. Reinvented maybe space exploration, and they made a crap ton of money from it. Should I be mad at them? Should I say that's not fair? How come you made all this money? Because you invested in space exploration and I had no interest, so I didn't. Does that mean it's not fair? No. You were interested in this, Somebody thought that was valuable and was willing to pay. I was not interested in it. I didn't invest in it. So I don't have what you now have.
Mm-hmm. And Elon Musk was born a millionaire. Listen, you're talking to the wrong dude. I have studied every minute of this dude's life. He's Joe's a fan. Absolutely was not born a millionaire. And if you look back on his travels and the countries that he's lived and the businesses that he created and the projects, the early ones are super fascinating. And, PayPal was he had a piece of mapping software that he sold off. And this was in the early days of digital. And then he sold off PayPal. And that was what caused him to then invest in the SpaceX and everything else down the line.
Do they think that because he had successful parents, or?
It always goes back to the emerald mine in Africa. And the charge is that somehow he was an entitled kid that went through Canada and given daddy's money and didn't really earn the businesses that whatever. So question is, would you give $1 million as an investor to Elon Musk or a poor guy? Which one do you think at the end of the year?
Elon Musk.
Okay, so he deserves the money that he has. That was my whole point, is that when you deserve it, it means that you're really good at making more of it by creating value. So even if you had a legacy, let's just say you were gifted from your grandparents $1 million to start off from, right? It is super easy to lose $1 million if you're brain dead and don't have real ambition. To make something from that starting point, where you can make an argument that I was born and I had a negative number, right? Does that give me then the license to say, well, I'm not even going to try because the guy down the road, his grandparents gave him $1 million? No, I'm going to catch up to them in a financially mobile society. The $0 or the negative dollar person will get there. It might take longer. You might have more obstacles. It might be harder, right? Mm-hmm. But the way that I did it is I found people who were ahead of me, right? That every day of my life I felt bad because they were ahead of me. And I learned from them to see what they did, decisions that they made. And I used those as my wisdom to be able to keep myself constrained from getting sad about my predicament and coping through my sadness by then being destructive. And I keep trying. So I'm a data collector. And so at every level, even in the very beginning, I was comparing myself with the people that were trying to help me. So I had $10,000 in net worth and they had, $100 million in net worth. And you can either be like, okay, well, 10,000 is a bit much lower number than the 100 million that this guy has. And I track it the next year. And I'm like, now I got $50,000 in net worth and he's got 100 million in net worth. I'm like, look at that progress that I made. I, more than quadrupled my net worth in one freaking year. Right. And then I read T. Boone Pickens. Do you know who that is?
No.
Okay. He's a Texas oil guy.
Oh.
And
T. Boone Pickens.
And when I read it the year that it came out, I remember what year it was, but I was pissed off at the title of the book so much that I read it like 15 different times. The title of the book is The First Million is the Hardest, right? And I thought that takes a swipe at everybody who has $50,000 of net worth. I freaking hate him. Like, what the hell is he even thinking? Like, $1 million seems like, infinite amount of money as far as I'm concerned. And I read the philosophy on the book and it changed decimal points for me where I started thinking differently about money and value and wealth. And I stopped thinking about a hard goal that was in front of me that was almost insurmountable. As soon as I stopped paying attention to the comparisons and made more about just emulating what other people were doing and how they felt, I reprogrammed my own brain so that I went from normie, right, who was just trying hard and willing to work as many hours as I possibly could, to a person who absolutely processed the world differently.
Yeah. I mean, how interesting is it that we are currently in a conversation where we are pointing out real world examples of where decisions can affect your outcome and even your money. You give examples of ways that you or people could come from nothing and end up with billions. We're talking about how everybody could have the chance and here's how you do it. And what is our feedback? You're entitled. Here comes the lecture, blah, blah. Like, it's not even, ooh, this is interesting. Let me learn from someone. Let me maybe take some notes. Let me see how what they're saying has been put into real practice and worked out for them. There's no consideration for, oh my God, maybe they know what they're talking about. And maybe I'll look at it that way. It's an instant fight. You're wrong. I'm right. We're all screwed. We're all stuck in this. And you're an entitled person trying to lecture me.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why.
The thing is, I am right. And they don't want me to be right because all of their politics, all of their philosophies die if you just tell everybody that they can do too.
Yeah. One of the best things I was ever a part of years ago, when I was living down south, there was this little town in Alabama, and this woman who lived and worked in the low income housing area, like very, very poor families. She lived there. She watched a lot of kids after school when the parents weren't home. She went around to businesses, doctors' offices, teachers, business owners, anybody in a professional capacity working that had the time, and invited them, please come talk to these kids in this after school program. And the reason she did that is, I want these children to know, very, very poor, generational patterns of this. Some of the kids showed up, they didn't have shoes. They went there after school because they got a snack, and that was the only thing they were eating that day. And invited every business person, anyone with an occupation to come at any time after school, and you tell these kids about what you do. What do? How did you get there? Why would she do that? If it's you're all stuck, you're all screwed, this is what you were born into, and there is no hope, why would she say, I want you all to come and teach these children how you got to where you are, and I want you to convey to them, you don't have to be here forever. You can do whatever you want to do. You are not stuck. Here's how I did it. Here are some guidelines for you. Because that's a thing. If she said, you're screwed, sorry, go about your day, then they're going to be screwed.
Millionaire, you can probably become without evading tax laws. You absolutely cannot become a billionaire with evading tax laws. Statistically, I would like to see your statistics on that. I've done the math a million times. And when you put assets into the marketplace that are valuable and you have people that want to purchase those assets and your net worth increases based on the total net increase, you can become a billionaire. You're not going to, okay, maybe if you're saying you can't collect a paycheck, like if you, let's just say you got off payroll, there's no more payroll for you.
Yeah.
Now you've broken away from the security of having a regular guaranteed amount of money. Now you've trapped yourself that you will never become a billionaire by just drawing a paycheck. I mean, forgo the paycheck, and let's just say Mel Gibson, right, makes a movie, and they're like, hey, we're going to give you $5 million to play the leading role in my movie. And Mel's like, what if I give up the guaranteed $5 million? Give me 30% of the movie gross, right? So Mel said, they's like, okay, well, if the movie does well, he gets paid. And if it doesn't do well, we're cool. We didn't have $5 million wrapped up in one artist, right? And then the movie goes on to make $10 billion. Well, Mel Gibson, by one choice, became a billionaire because he was willing to forego the safe salary of playing the lead role for a stake in the risk, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it's really about.
Yeah, taking big risks.
And I believe that happened, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't know what movie it was, but I think he made a buttload on that and will probably forever as that thing continues to be watched into the future.
Was it Passion of the Christ?
No. Well, maybe it was Passion.
I think it might have been.
The tax brackets do not allow you to become a billionaire. Statistically impossible, even if you invented Venmo. Yeah, you don't understand. You just don't understand how that value is tracked. You will never have $1 billion in your bank account.
Yeah, again, like, do you think people are sort of picturing, like, not to make it juvenile, but like the Scrooge McDuck with a big room of money that he's swimming in?
Yeah, you don't really
are
believe
like
that, guys.
Assets and things.
You don't really believe that somebody draws $1 billion paycheck.
Yeah,
right? You don't believe that, right? It's assets when added up are equal, snapshotted today as being worth X. So Elon Musk will become a trillionaire, right?
Yeah,
because he has most of his assets in stock that he owns from his company. He
has things that are of that value.
If that stock goes up, then his net worth goes up.
Yeah. Not like money in hand.
you're making arguments that could be made for millionaires, not billionaires. It's relative. Maybe there are far fewer billionaires, but the math is still the same regardless. Lower income and poor people blow money faster because the vision of upward mobility, because you keep telling them that. I'm telling them, hey, if you're poor right now, don't listen to Penny Lane, and you can decide to just wipe the tabletop off, start over, right? Remove the traps that you're in, stop listening to naysayers who say it can't be done, and take the risk of breaking out of the trap that you've created for yourself.
Mm-hmm. There it is. This lecture is so entitled, "You're not taking into account the full picture of the economy in this country." Okay.
I'm not going to respond to that because I think we did that already. You don't understand economics of billionaires? Yes, I do. I forgot. Did Jesus feed the poor, or did he kick sand on their feet and tell them to make better decisions? No, I believe that Jesus told individuals to be very Christian-like to one another.
Yep.
He didn't say, form governments to make sure that people are taken care of and disincentivize them and create, people that will vote for you because of the stuff that you give them.
I'm pretty sure Jesus had a whole buttload of guidelines of how to make your life better and a whole bunch of things to do to be a better person. Jesus is the epitome of don't do this to prosper and be a good person.
Yeah. Nice try though. That was cool. The tea is boiling today. Yes, Emmanuel. Josh says most people were just lazy. I owed $14,000 on my car until June 2025. I got sick of the payment, so I sold stuff on eBay and got tight with my money, paid it off in December. Yeah,
nice.
And changing behaviors, changing outlook on what it was, knowing that little weight at the end of, when you're parting with so much of your monthly or weekly income, once you realize that's too heavy and it's hard to, pull that burden of a liability like a freaking car, made a sacrifice, made a risk of taking your free time and selling shit to get rid of that liability. That's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Your examples don't take into account the barriers that limit upward mobility. Okay, tell me about the barriers. I'm super interested because I want to dispel them. The structure in place, the tax policy, healthcare, education, housing, the disappearing middle class. Well, the middle class was inauthentic to begin with. And I think, that was a trap in itself where, the disparity between upper class, lower class always ends a civilization in 2 seconds. So I understood why policy was to create an inauthentic middle class, to pretend, like the guy sweeping at General Motors was worth $70,000. Like that was inauthentic because the real value, that guy, if you take him out of General Motors and put him in any other sweeping facility, he would not be pulling down $70,000. So we made up a lot of undue wages in order to create some weird middle class. Now, as we progress and that disparity gets bigger, the divide gets bigger. So if I'm talking to you now in 2026, it's easier today than it will be in 2030. The longer we wait, where we're telling would-be capitalists and entrepreneurs that they can't do it, the less of them get involved. And then we get fewer people participating. And then it gets harder because the bigger groups get almost the ability to squash anybody that's new. So I will agree with you. Eventually, there will be no hope. You will not be able to get involved because your competition will destroy you even before you get started. But the mobility part is that there are industries and things that you can do. I might not be able to get in the oil industry today. Way too much money to get involved. The prospecting, the machinery, the technologies, it's out of the picture for me, right? But could I do something else? Not in the oil industry that hasn't been saturated with a bunch of entrepreneurs that have dominated there. There's an infinite amount of things that you can do. And on the precipice of AI, there it is. Nobody's stopping you from getting in and understanding and learning everything in AI. And it's been relayed to us. It is the next big industry.
Especially with the internet today. Like back in my day, we had to go to an encyclopedia or a library and dig up information. And it took a lot of effort. Now, I just learned about AI. I'm going to start learning this language. Information is at your fingertips.
Yeah, but nobody's forcing you into it. You'll be conditioned that kids, in order to get education, has to be, a against truancy not to show
Yeah.
up there. And so they're like, they turn 18 and like, or after they get out of college, like, when's my next education helping going to visit my door and be delivered to me?
Last weekend, what did I do last weekend? I went to my kid's soccer game. What did Joe do last weekend? He invented an AI agent. So when Joe's AI invention becomes prosperous and makes money, and I went to my kid's soccer game, can I then yell at you and be like, that's so unfair that you just made all that money? What a rigged system.
But in your social, your environment, you think you were, there was an immobility that you couldn't have done those things because of the trap that you were expected to be at the soccer game. Had you set it up,
I could have done it later.
Could have done it later.
Yeah.
You could have skipped the soccer game. If your environment was tolerant of you making risky behaviors, it seemed like not going to the soccer game was the better of the two options.
Yeah. I didn't have a strong enough interest in looking into it. You did.
That's right. I'll read that Yale report, but I'm still not going to agree with it. You're going to convince me that it is difficult, but you're not going to convince me that it's impossible. You're going to convince me that people try hard in their free time. It's never going to happen. I know that, my brother, I hate to throw him under the bus, but he was starting a business and he was like, Joe, I want to start this business. And I don't have any time. Right. And he thought that was an obstacle. I'm never going to be able to start this business. Look at my schedule. Like, I don't have any time whatsoever. And I'm like, you have free time. You have free time. You don't know it because you're not budgeting it and making sure that you spend it wisely. There's some leakage in your day. Absolutely. That you could spend 30 minutes today doing your business. Even though you don't think you can right now, I know that you possibly can. He was adamant that he did not have enough time. And I use the, people don't have money until it's time to file bankruptcy and somehow come up with $2,000. How does that freaking happen? Right? When there is a need, and it's so important to you that you do it, you end up eliminating things, making things take less time, reinvesting like, I need to relax time, right? And it gets drilled into something that's a priority to you. So I told him, I said, having enough time to start your business is just not a big enough priority. When it becomes a priority and you love it so much you're able to do it, new businesses, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. You know where I put the time? 4:30 in the morning. Why do I do that? Well, I'm doing high risk things in the morning. I'm never going to sacrifice my family time. So I have to tell myself, even when I don't want to, I got to get up at 4:30 in the morning if I really care enough about this business. Now, there's some people who are like, I really like my sleep so much, I'm not getting up at 4:30. Exactly. You're not immobile. You're just unwilling.
Yeah. See where you have the time. See what you're willing to sacrifice. See what you can actually do. That same fitness woman I talked about earlier with the mindset, she works with women who's like, well, that's too heavy. I can't lift that much of weight. Okay. Well, when your toddler ran over to you, did you pick up your toddler? Well, yeah. You just picked up a 40-pound toddler, but you can't pick up a 20-pound dumbbell. You can. It's your mindset saying you can't.
Yeah. And it's undermined because these people that are in this chat right now would have that person who maybe has a little bit of an infancy of ambition. They're going to tell them it can't be done. And when it's in an infancy, it can be easily destroyed. It's super vulnerable. So if I was like, hey, you know what? You're going to take this big risk. You're not going to like it. It's going to be really hard. And it might not work out anyway, but it's rigged against you. You're not going to be able to do it. Then they're like, okay, I guess I'll just go to school.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not helping those people. Penny said, then again, these people that voted for Trump, given $1 million at age 21, lost it. Then daddy gave them another $1 million when he bankrupted his casino. Who bankrupts a casino in the 80s?
Now, would you say bankruptcy is a real part of business strategy? People, I feel like, do use bankruptcy as strategy.
Just like everything else. I mean, if I invented a company that I never really wanted to do, I only invented it for an acquisition. Like that's sort of, it's necessary because maybe I'm good at the engineering side, but I'm terrible at the sales and executive positions and whatever. So I don't want to invent the company. I want to hatch the idea and then give it to somebody else who would make use of it. Insolvency, as market changes, is just part of the formula of business. It's necessary in some cases, but just like everything else, it's a corrupted deal. And once you invent a method, then there are people that take advantage of that method for the wrong reason, just because we're all human beings. And I'll agree with you. Like I love business and I never had an appreciation or an acknowledgement that that Trump was a business person at all. When The Apprentice came out, I wanted to love that show so bad, and I hated it every second of it because it was not the business that I knew and loved. It wasn't about people creating value, right? It was people doing exactly everything I hate about business, and I never watched more than a couple episodes of it.
Interesting.
Joe's self-reflection is covered up by a cloth. It's never been done. I don't know what that means. And me and your brother, I'm the same similar industry, and I can safely say with enough time, effort, and mentality, we're successful. Absolutely.
How about Penny Lane says, yes, somehow poor people are to blame when they are bad with money. Rich something. I just lost it. Are poor people to blame if they're bad with money?
Okay. A lot of people are bad with money because it's not a focus of our education system. But there are, if you look at the channels and what is covered and what's available online to not be bad at money again, all you have to do is suspend what you think you know. You know, we're back to Socrates again. And this is a hard one to hear for a lot, even to me. And I'm convinced I know everything. But Socrates' strength was the pinnacle of wisdom is that you don't know anything. You're wrong, right? And if you approach everything like you're curious to know what truth and what right actually is, and you could shut your brain up enough and your ego up enough to learn what the truth is, constantly be prodding at what things you know to keep adding to it. So if, like, how many instances of being in finance, like if you don't have enough money in your bank account to pay rent, you hit peril, you get stressed out. How many times does that have to happen before you're like, hey, I'm probably bad with money.
This sucks.
Is there a resource out there can teach me how to not be bad with my money again? Now, if you blame external sources, nothing can be done about those external sources. So if you came to me and said, I learned everything about money, I did everything that was in my control, right? The only person I will have empathy for is when they've cleared everything that was in their control and they've done it and they still lost. Now that's an actual injustice. But if you're like, I'm not going to make any changes or any different decisions, but I want the world to deliver me the outcome in spite of not being willing to do it myself, I have no empathy for that whatsoever. And there are very few people who are in bad positions that have taken care of themselves first.
Yeah. But success looks different for everyone. Some people think being a billionaire is successful. Some people may think 50,000 is successful. It's all what you make of it and your mentality. Push your expectations.
Yeah. And that's what I said earlier. There's some people who don't want to draw a paycheck at all. And their whole goal in life, they're not, they're not trying to achieve fame and fortune, right? Yeah. They're happy where they are. And I'm not talking about those people. Those are the exception.
Yeah.
But if you ask most people that are in the poor category, if they want to be there, right, I'm going to tell them, I'll hold your hand and let's go do different things.
Yeah. I mean, I've known people that make a lot of money and they have a very stressful job. There's a lot riding on their decisions. They're just stressed all the time. And I am like, I would rather have a less expensive home, a less expensive car, a less expensive life, and not be as stressed out as you are. Some people say, nope, I need this income, I need these things, and I'm willing to have that stressful job, then by all means.
That's exactly right.
I'm not, so I don't have it.
Right.
I would rather have my mental health.
Yeah. And it feels empathetic to take a person who's, they don't have a lot of money and they're stressed out because of finances, and on their behalf be outraged that they shouldn't be in that position. Right. Mm-hmm. And all that does is the real answer key is that you do different things and you're going to shield them from that and just give them what you think they need to make them happier. And when you give that thing to them and it doesn't make them happier, then you think, oh, maybe I just didn't give them enough. And then so you just keep layering on what you doing for on behalf of another person. I would rather hear someone who's in the poor category so pissed off that they're there and willing to do anything to get out of there every single time. And the Democrats can have all of the, perpetual victims who are already convinced that they don't have a hand in where their outcome is. And I won't listen to them and I'll never agree with them.
Yeah. And I mean, I know of like churches, for example. If there's somebody in the community that comes to them and they're like, I can't pay my electricity bill this month, I don't know what I'm going to do, they will take it and they will pay the bill. You've had a hard month. Let us help you out by all means. But when you come back the very next month and they say, hey, I still can't pay my electricity bill, they're going to say, okay, well, we just paid this. What happened here? Let's look at this. And if they come back again, it's, here's a course on finances. Here's what we're going to do to coach you. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at your finances. There is something done to break you out of this rut that you were stuck in. And the victim mentality is, what a jerk you are. You should just give to the poor and keep helping them. And the open-minded people who don't want people to suffer, who want them to have dignity and pride and a life that is successful, say, hey, something's wrong here. Let's work together. Let's find out where you're going off the rails and how can we avoid this? And then you won't need me anymore. You'll just prosper on your own.
Yep. We want independence, not dependence. I want to read this one too. That's how Trump stiffed all of his contractors and never had to pay them, tied them up in litigation for years. He kept declaring bankruptcy and taxpayers are on the hook for it. And this is sort of like everything I hate about business. Okay. So let me give you a couple instances, and this exists. And that's why the pressure shouldn't be anti-capitalism. It should be moral and ethics capitalism. So here's the difference. So there was a lady that I ran across, and she was what's that thing, that legal document when you have a design, you protect it into intellectual patent squatters or copyright squatters, right? And so what this lady did was she took a design for a product and she patented it, and which means that she is the hatcher of the idea. The patent request was given to her. She owns that property or that design. Never in a million years was she ever going to create from that patent, right? So she probably hired somebody to put it in a design, and she owns it. Now, what she does is she waits for somebody to produce a product that infringes on that patent. She makes an entire living suing people as they pop up, design something, it's too similar. She sues them for $1 million and she gets paid. Yeah. That is one element. Like, I think people should protect property.
Do people do this with websites? I own abc.com or I own whatever.com.
Think of patent squatting as it could be design elements. It could be contract law. And that's where Trump, got all his experience was in real estate in New York. And real estate in New York is effing brutal, right? It is not a nice way to play. The people who are players there, they're downright mean about how they do business. So let's just say you and I are both in the same industry, right? We have a conversation and we're like, hey, we're going to do business. And we write up contracts. My contract says, all right, you're going to be the mean one in this.
I'm the mean one?
I'm going to write up a contract that says, I really like Kelin. I like her motivations. I think her product is really good. What we'll do is at the end of each month, we'll discuss things and we'll get a fair split for one another and say, we're signing. And then you write up this contract that's 97 pages written by a law firm. And
legal jargon,
like, and here's your contract. And I'm like, Kelin, I trust you so much, whatever. And I sign your document, you sign mine, right?
And I'm like,
who was the dummy here? Should I be able to make an agreement with you? And then we had some verbal stuff, and we just, went through the formality of putting it on paper. But you hid so many advantages in your contract that when it came to actually doing the business, you were like, we look at the finances like, hey, we're supposed to split some of this stuff. And you're like, well, yeah, that was theoretic. That was an opening talk. But in the contract, it says you get 10%, I get 90%. So who's the dummy? The person who knew I wouldn't read it.
You didn't read it.
I gave it to you. You didn't read it. Oh, that's kind of on you. That is slimy. It's not corrupt. It was legal. You had the opportunity to have your lawyer go and read it, right? But you didn't.
Slimy.
So if Trump can go out there when he was in his business career and he could just outperform either legally or contractually, and he's just better at it, and he takes advantage of the fact that you're not going to read the contract anyway, right? He was smarter and he won in that just because he used the system better than you did. Now, the next time
you might think it's slimy.
It's slimy. I would never do it.
But was still legal.
But I'm like, I got to almost say that was the better business person in the relationship because they just did it better. The merit of it, they were better at contracts than I was.
You could probably ruin a reputation doing that.
Oh, yeah. Who's
Nobody will want to do business
hey,
with you.
This Trump guy is going to come here and this contract's going to be watertight and there's going to be some errors in it where, the figures that we discussed was different. You better have your attorney look at it. And then I'm like, I'm not going to deal with someone who's going to be trying to outmaneuver me in a contract. And then he would lose business. But he's not exactly, he didn't lose business. He dealt with a lot of development projects and he never had a scarcity of that.
Yeah, they'll be like, "Ooh, he's kind of slimy, but I do need this, so I'm going to do it."
Right. So I don't love it. I hate the sliminess. I wish business wasn't like that, but I know that it exists, and it makes me want to get better and know that anybody I sit across from the table, it's part of my responsibility to have lawyers look at it, summarize it for me, because that's not my skill set. That's not where I put any of my, research time. So, yeah.
Manuel says, that was me, Joe. I was definitely in the poor zone. And as you said earlier, I looked at everything I've done and assumed it failed. Changed my mindset and took bigger risks. Super stressful, but if you don't break out of the normal habit, you won't get anywhere different.
Yep, that's absolutely true. And I'm very impressed, and I'm thankful that you're out there and you have some history and some stories to tell about that.
And Emmanuel, do you ever hear people say to you, "Oh, must be nice. Oh, must be nice to have money for that," when they don't know that you sold your car? "Oh, must be nice to have that job," when they don't know the 3 to 5 jobs you lost before that, or must be nice to whatever. Like, do you ever interact with these people that say you're just entitled and lecturing them because you took a risk and you changed your mindset, you changed your habits, and you were better for it? That's what grinds my gears.
And here's the thing, you almost have to know that when we say stuff like this, and we've dedicated a lot of time to talking about it, 90% of the people are going to hear this and they're going to recoil from everything that we've said. They're going to punch holes in it. But they are not to be helped. They were not convincible from the very beginning. But if you can have 3 people that listen to this recording at some time in the future and somehow take it seriously and break out, totally worth it as far as I'm concerned.
Like those kids with a woman that had professionals come talk to the kids. There's a group of kids. Is a good part of them probably going to go home and go back to their everyday life and nothing's going to change in their future? Maybe. Could there be a kid or two that is like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to learn more. Then that's great.
All right. We're going to get out of here for today, guys. Thanks for listening to a much different topic choice and theme for today.
Yeah. Go make good choices today.
Yeah. Judge yourself harshly and try to do different things today. All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook.